My period lasted over 2 weeks due to hormonal issues. Luke's childhood friend Cassidy smirked. Poor Luke with a wife you can't even use. Our friends laughed. I replied sweetly. Why would he be miserable? He's happy to have a break from his little blue pills. The room fell silent, then erupted in louder laughter. Luke lost his smile. What are you talking about? I'm not making it up, I said innocently. His ears reddened as he whispered. That was one time it's private. And my hormones aren't private. I shot back. A friend teased. Secrets? Is the missus complaining? Still angry, Luke had shared my health issues. I scoffed. He panicked enough. She's sensitive and just getting back at me, right? I said with a wry smile. Just getting back at him. My tone made it seem like I was saving his face. His friends exchanged knowing glances. Then Cassidy spoke up. I can vouch for Luke's stamina. He doesn't need help. I gave her a long, hard look. Her comments stunned the table into silence. The guy who had been teasing Luke earlier even tried to rein her in. Cassie, are you insane? You're going to wreck Luke's marriage. He then turned to me. Raina. Cassie's always been one to speak without thinking. Don't take her seriously. I crossed my arms. The fire I had just managed to bank flaring up again. Cassidy, I remembered her. She had always used aloud. I'm just one of the guys. Personality to mask her complete lack of manners. On my wedding night with Luke, she was the one who insisted we play some vulgar party game involving a banana. She grabbed one and before she could shove it between Luke's legs, his face had darkened. Cassie, that's enough. Luke, at least back then, had the decency to shut it down immediately. I had let it go, dismissed it. But now with this new stunt, it all came rushing back. Luke was about to speak. I beat him to it. What? Did you two sleep together or something? A blush crept up Cassidy's neck. She had started this, but now that I'd called her bluff, she looked flustered. No, of course not. The blush on her face deepened. The silence in the room was deafening. Luke's voice suddenly sharpened. Raina, that's enough. Don't be so aggressive. My friends have loose lips. That's all. Let it go. He shot me a look of clear disapproval. Bitter laugh escaped me, my anger spiking. So now I'm the one being aggressive? Seeing a full-blown fight was about to erupt. His friends quickly tried to mediate. Cassie, just apologize to Raina and we can all move on. Yeah, this is on you, Cass. Look, you're causing a crisis in Luke's marriage. Cassidy pouted and mumbled an apology in my direction. I was cornered, hoisted on a pedestal of supposed magnanimity. I had no choice but to drop the argument with Luke near the end of the night. I got up to use the restroom. Halfway there, I realized I'd forgotten a pad. As I walked back to the private room to grab one, I heard their voices drift out. Over half a month without, huh? Ash? You basically a monk? No wonder Cassie was asking. I'm also wondering what the point of you getting married was. So, is it true what your wife said? You really need the pills. The room was filled with laughter. The tension that had been present when I was there completely gone. Cassidy's voice was petulant. Not a single one of you stood up for me just now. And here you are running your mouths. Who told you to say something so reckless? Yeah, nobody was gonna touch that line. How would you know about Luke's performance anyway? Did you test it out for him? The jokes were getting more and more out of line. Cassidy's voice held a trace of coyness. Don't be ridiculous. But the friends, sensing blood in the water, pressed on. So how do you know? Spill it. It was back in college. We all went swimming together. Remember? Luke was wearing swim trunks. Was really obvious. She stammered through the explanation. Her answer was met with a roar of laughter. Cassie, you're not telling us everything. Why were you staring there when you were supposed to be swimming? Ashman, you got married too soon. It's obvious Cassie's been waiting to pounce. Luke's voice laced with a helpless laugh. Cut in, all right. All right, that's enough. My wife's here tonight, so rein it in. She can't take a joke. The mention of my name plunged the room into silence. Then someone spoke up. Man, you just can't bring wives to guys' night. If only all women could take a joke like Cassie. But seriously, Ash, how obvious are we talking? There was a scrape of a chair as if someone had stood up abruptly. I'll show you just how obvious it is right now. Mid a chorus of whoops and hollers, I pushed the door open. Cassidy was draped over Luke, one of her hands frozen on his belt buckle. Any closer and she would have been touching the very thing they were all talking about. Caught red-handed, they both looked mortified. A faint blush colored Cassidy's cheeks. Luke frantically yanked his belt out of her grasp. Wait, honey, let me explain. I crossed my arms. Explain what? Go on. Let her pull it down. Let's all have a look. My words seemed to short-circuit his brain. What? I sneered. Isn't it so obvious? Let her unbuckle it so everyone can see just how obvious it is. Cassidy didn't dare make another move. I walked straight up to Luke, hooked a finger in his belt, and gave it a tug. He knew what I was about to do and jerked back, clamping a hand over his buckle. Any shred of guilt he might have felt vanished in an instant. All right, stop it. Aren't you afraid of making a scene? Making a scene? Who was the one making a scene here? A minute ago, before I walked in, you were all having a grand old time, talking about how she was checking you out. That wasn't making a scene. Oh, so you guys talking about it is fine. But me asking you to show everyone is embarrassing. No one at the table dared to speak, but I could feel their eyes on me. It wasn't the cautious respect from before. It was annoyance. I had ruined their fun again. My words left Luke speechless. The atmosphere was thick with tension. And of course it was Cassidy who spoke first. Her voice was a kitten's mewl dripping with fake contrition. I'm so sorry, Rena. I really don't know what's okay to say and what isn't. If I've upset you, I'll leave. She grabbed her purse and started for the door. Immediately, the other friends grabbed her arm. A flood of comforting words pouring out. Cassie, you don't have to go. We all know what you're like. Yeah, Cass. It was just a joke. No one's holding it against you. If anyone should leave, it shouldn't be you. One of them actually said it out loud. I raised an eyebrow at him, then looked back at Luke. So I guess that means I'm the one who should go. Two can play at this game. I grabbed my own bag and made a show of rushing out. Not a single one of those hypocritical friends moved to stop me. It wasn't until I reached the ground floor that I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Luke, after some deliberation, had decided to catch up. Nina, don't be angry. He grabbed my arm, forcing me to turn and face him. Before I could say a word, I saw Cassidy scurrying down the stairs behind him. She was holding Luke's phone. Luke, your mom just called. She wants us to come to your parents' place for dinner this weekend. Cassidy placed the phone in Luke's hand. Her eyes flickered towards me. A clear provocation. Okay, thanks. He actually thanked her. I wrenched my arm out of Luke's grasp. Wow, you even know his lock screen password. I'm starting to ship you two. His face stiffened. Rena, don't be ridiculous. Cassidy hid behind Luke, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of me noticing that little detail. Rena, it's normal to know his password. Everyone knows Luke's password is your birthday. It sounded so reasonable. Luke looked even more embarrassed. I jumped in. Everyone knows. Oh, so all his buddies can just unlock his phone whenever they want. Answer his calls. His mom just called to invite the two of you to dinner. Why didn't she invite the whole gang? Luke took a step closer, trying to pull me away. Don't make it sound so ugly. My mom watched Cassie grow up. It's that simple. Cassidy stood to the side looking anxious. If it bothers you so much, Rena, I just won't go. Oh no, don't do that. Anyone can skip. But how could the two of you not go? If you don't go, his mother will be so sad. Luke tugged on my arm, signaling me to stop. I glared at him. What are you pulling me for? Does your mother not have a son? Does Cassie not have parents? Why do they need to play happy family with someone else's kid? Luke's face darkened. Rena, whether it was my words that actually hurt her or not, I couldn't tell. But Cassidy's eyes welled up and she turned and ran back up the stairs. Luke pressed his fingers to his forehead. Rena, all I wanted was a peaceful dinner, right? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have stopped you all from talking about me. I'm no fun. I can't take a joke. I looked at the blame in Luke's eyes. Was like I was seeing him for the first time. And my heart sank. Luke was the one who pursued me. We had been interns at the same company when we first got together. My family had a pretty good impression of him. He was smart, did well in school. And back then, he was even humble. The only thing they were concerned about was his family's financial situation. There was no way he could afford to buy a house. Then they met his parents. After that, my parents were dead set against the marriage. My family wasn't wealthy, but we were comfortably middle class. Luke's parents were from a working class background, and they had a certain coarseness about them. We first met at a 5-star restaurant. His parents were rude to the waiters. And when the bill came, they just sat there and watched my parents pay. Not even a token gesture of offering to contribute. What infuriated my parents even more was what happened next. At the time, Luke was renting an apartment. I would occasionally visit. And if it got late, I'd stay the night. His parents actually brought this up in front of my parents. The implication was clear. I was already one of them. On the ride home, I sat in my parents' car. I rarely saw them lose their composure. But that day they did. Those people are thieves. Think they brought that up because they have no manners? No. It was a calculated move to get out of paying a dowry. Think about it. Why else wouldn't they even offer to pay for dinner? But I was blinded by love back then. I actually argued with them. They're just straightforward. They don't have any bad intentions. The last time I went to their house, they said I was too skinny and made me pork knuckles. They probably saw you were already paying the bill and felt too awkward to say anything besides I'm marrying Luke. Not his parents. My dad scoffed at that. They can't even afford a house. You'll be crammed into some tiny apartment with them, whether you like it or not. But in the end, parents can rarely win against their children's will. I refused to break up with Luke. My parents had no choice but to pay the down payment on a house for us. Their only condition to Luke was that he never let me be wronged. Perhaps Luke was grateful once, but as time went on, he began to see everything my parents and I did for him as his due. I looked at the man standing on the steps above me. The streetlights cast long, jagged shadows across his face. He looked pathetic. He looked like a man who had been caught, not a man who was sorry. That realization hit me harder than the cold night air. For years, I had confused his insecurity for sensitivity. I had mistaken his lack of ambition for contentment. But standing there, watching Cassidy hover over his shoulder like a vulture waiting for a carcass, I saw the truth. My parents were right. They had always been right. Luke wasn't a partner. He was a parasite. And I was the host that had finally decided to stop feeding him. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The anger that had been boiling in my gut suddenly cooled into something hard and sharp. It felt like ice in my veins. You're right, Luke, I said softly. My voice was calm, which seemed to terrify him more than my shouting had. It is your fault. But not because you can't take a joke. It's because you let them make me the punchline to cover up your own inadequacies. Luke flinched as if I'd slapped him. Cassidy let out a dramatic little gasp, clutching his arm tighter. Oh, Raina, don't be so dramatic, she squeaked. We're just trying to have a nice night. I ignored her completely. My eyes were locked on my husband. I'm going home, Luke. Do whatever you want. Go to dinner with your mom and your girlfriend here. I really don't care anymore. Raina, wait. Luke shouted, taking a step down. But Cassidy anchored him. Let her go, Luke, she whispered, loud enough for me to hear. She's just throwing a tantrum. She'll calm down by tomorrow. She always does. That was the sting. She was right. I always did. I always swallowed my pride, apologized for making a scene, and smoothed things over. I was the peacemaker. I was the good wife. But as I turned my back on them and raised my hand to hail a taxi, I knew that version of me was dead. I sat in the back of the cab, watching the city blur past. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a text from Luke. Baby, please. You know how Cass is. Don't be like this. Go home and I'll be there in an hour. We can talk. I didn't reply. I didn't block him. I just stared at the screen until it went black. When I got to the house, silence greeted me. This house. My parents had put down 60% of the purchase price. They paid for the renovations. They bought the furniture. Luke's contribution had been the television and the toaster. Yet, his name was on the deed right next to mine. Joint tenancy. My father had argued against it, but I had insisted. I didn't want to emasculate him, I had said. I wanted us to be equals. I walked into the living room and turned on the lamp. The light hit the wedding photo hanging above the mantel. We looked so happy. I looked adoringly at him. He looked triumphant. Like he had won a prize. Not a person, but a prize. I walked over to the bookshelf where he kept his collectibles. Expensive figurines and limited edition sets. That he bought with his allowance. We had a joint account for bills, but I paid the mortgage. His salary was for us, he claimed, but somehow it always went to his hobbies, or his car, or gifts for his mother. I reached out and picked up a ceramic statue he loved. It was some limited-run character from a game. He had spent $400 on it last month while complaining that we couldn't afford a weekend getaway. I turned it over in my hands. It felt heavy. Cold. I let it slip. It hit the hardwood floor with a sickening crunch. Ceramic shards scattered across the polished wood. I didn't feel guilty. I felt a strange sense of release. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. I pulled my suitcase out of the closet. For a moment, I thought about packing my things and leaving. Going to my parents' house. They would welcome me with open arms. They would say, I told you so, with their eyes, but they would hold me. But then I stopped. Why should I leave? This was my house. My parents paid for it. I paid the mortgage. I paid the property taxes. If anyone was leaving, it wasn't going to be me. I put the suitcase away. Instead, I walked into the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet. There, on the second shelf, sat the bottle. The little blue pills. The prescription was in his name. Date dispensed, 2 weeks ago. I stared at the bottle. He had humiliated me in front of everyone. He had let them laugh at my hormonal issues. He had let them speculate about my body, my desirability. All to hide this little orange bottle. I took the bottle down. I opened it. I poured the pills into the toilet. I watched them swirl away in the water. Blue dots vanishing into the abyss. I put the empty bottle back on the shelf. Right where he would find it. I heard the front door open downstairs an hour later. Heavy footsteps. Hesitant. Then, the sound of crunching. What the? Silence. He had found the statue. Raina? His voice drifted up the stairs. It sounded small. Scared. I didn't answer. I was sitting in bed, reading a book. Or pretending to. The words were swimming before my eyes, but I kept my posture rigid. He appeared in the doorway. He looked disheveled. His tie was loosened. There was a faint smear of lipstick on his collar. It was a shade I didn't own. Coral pink. Cassidy's shade. He saw me looking at it. His hand flew to his neck, covering the stain. Raina, about tonight, he started. I turned a page. I'm tired, Luke. I don't want to talk about it. He walked into the room, skirting around the bed. He looked relieved that I wasn't screaming. He mistook my detachment for submission. Look, I know they took it too far, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. He reached out to touch my leg. I shifted away. He pulled his hand back. But you have to understand, that's just how the guys are. And Cass, she's basically one of the guys. She doesn't mean anything by it. I closed my book and set it on the nightstand. Is that why she has your password? Is that why she knows when your mother calls before you do? Luke sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's just a number, Raina. She helped me set up the phone when I got it. You know I'm bad with tech. You're a software engineer, Luke, I said flatly. He paused. His face reddened. It's just a habit, okay? We've been friends since kindergarten. There are no secrets between us. Clearly, I said. Since she knows about our sex life. Or rather, the lies you tell about our sex life. He stood up, defensive now. I didn't tell her anything. She guessed. She's observant. And what was I supposed to say? Yeah, guys, I can't get it up? They would have eaten me alive. So you fed them me instead, I said. You threw me to the wolves to save your pride. He threw his hands up. You're my wife. You're supposed to have my back. I stared at him. The audacity was breathtaking. And you're supposed to honor and protect me, I whispered. Not serve me up on a platter for your friend's amusement. He paced the room. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry. Now can we drop it? Mom really wants us there on Sunday. If we don't go, she's going to think we're having problems. We're having problems, Luke. He froze. Don't say that. We're fine. This is just a little fight. You're just emotional. It's you know. He gestured vaguely at my stomach. My blood boiled. He was doing it again. Using the lie he created to dismiss my valid anger. Get out, I said. What? Sleep in the guest room. Raina, come on. I said get out. My voice didn't rise, but the steel in it made him step back. He looked at me, assessing whether he could bully me into submission. He decided against it. Fine, he snapped. Be like that. But we are going to my parents on Sunday. I'm not dealing with my mom asking questions. He grabbed a pillow and stormed out. I waited until I heard the guest room door slam. Then I got up and locked the bedroom door. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, plotting. He wanted me to go to the dinner? Fine. I would go. But I wasn't going as the meek, apologetic wife. I was going as the woman who owned the roof over his head. The next 2 days passed in a cold fog. Luke tried to act normal. He made coffee in the morning. He tried to make small talk. I answered in monosyllables. He didn't mention the broken statue. He probably swept it up and hid the pieces, just like he had everything else unpleasant in his life. He didn't mention the empty pill bottle either. But I noticed he was quieter than usual after his morning shower. Sunday arrived with a gray, overcast sky. Luke was nervous. He changed his shirt 3 times. Does this look okay? He asked, holding up a blue polo. Mom likes blue. I didn't look up from my tablet. It's fine. Are you wearing that? He asked, gesturing to my outfit. I was wearing a tailored black dress. It was elegant, expensive, and severe. It wasn't the flowy, pastel sundresses his mother preferred. It looked like I was going to a board meeting. Or a funeral. Yes, I said. It's a bit formal, isn't it? It's a casual family dinner. I stood up and grabbed my purse. I'm ready. We drove in silence. His parents lived in an older neighborhood on the other side of town. The house was cluttered, the lawn overgrown. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw a familiar red convertible parked out front. Cassidy. Of course. Luke saw it too and gripped the steering wheel tighter. I didn't know she was coming, he lied. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Don't insult my intelligence, Luke. She invited herself on your phone 3 days ago. He parked the car and didn't look at me. Just, please behave. For me. I unbuckled my seatbelt. Oh, I'll behave exactly as well as you deserve. We walked to the door. Before we could knock, it swung open. Cassidy stood there, wearing an apron over a dress that was 2 sizes too small. You're here. She squealed. She bypassed me completely and threw her arms around Luke. We've been waiting for ages. Mom made your favorite roast. Mom. She called his mother Mom. Luke awkwardly patted her back, glancing at me. Hi, Cass. Cassidy pulled back and looked at me with feigned surprise. Oh, Raina. You came. I thought after the other night. She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. That I was too fragile. Too dramatic. I smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Why wouldn't I come? I love roast. I stepped past her into the house. The smell of overcooked meat and stale cigarette smoke hit me. Luke's mother, Barbara, was sitting in her recliner, watching TV. His father, Frank, was asleep on the couch. Neither of them got up. There's my boy, Barbara yelled, muting the TV. Luke went over and kissed her cheek. Hi, Ma. Barbara looked at me. Her eyes raked over my black dress. You going to a funeral, Raina? I sat down on a hard wooden chair. Just felt like dressing up, Barbara. She snorted. Well, you look skinny. Doesn't she look skinny, Luke? Don't you feed her? Cassidy waltzed into the room carrying a tray of appetizers. Oh, you know Raina, Mom. She's always on some diet. She watched her figure like a hawk. Not like us real women, right? She winked at Barbara. Barbara laughed, a hacking sound. That's right. Men like a little meat on the bones. Isn't that right, Lukey? Luke looked miserable. Yeah, Ma. Cassidy sat on the arm of Barbara's chair, practically sitting in her lap. So, Luke, I was telling Mom about that promotion you're up for. That's big news. Luke froze. I looked at him. He hadn't told me about a promotion. Yeah, it's just a possibility, he stammered. Barbara beamed. My son, the manager. I always knew you'd go far. Not like those lazy bums in the neighborhood. You're smart, like your mother. I spoke up, my voice cutting through the praise. What position is it, Luke? He looked at his shoes. Senior systems lead. That comes with a significant raise, doesn't it? I asked. He shrugged. Maybe. I haven't got it yet. But if you do, Cassidy interjected, you should totally get that new truck you've been wanting. The Ford Raptor. You'd look so hot in that. I set my purse down on the floor. Actually, I said, keeping my voice pleasant. If Luke gets a raise, we'll be putting it toward the principal on the mortgage. The room went silent. Barbara's face soured. The mortgage? She spat. Why are you always worrying about money? You can't take it with you. Let the boy have a truck if he wants a truck. He works hard. I leaned forward. He does work hard. But interest rates are high, Barbara. And since my parents put down the deposit, it's only fair we pay off the rest as quickly as possible. Frank stirred on the couch. He opened one bloodshot eye. Always about her parents, he grumbled. Lord and Lady Fauntleroy. Think they're better than us. I looked at Frank. They don't think they're better than you, Frank. They just understand financial responsibility. Cassidy scoffed. Responsibility? Please. You treat Luke like he's your employee. Put it toward the mortgage. Don't buy the truck. Let him be a man, Raina. I turned my head slowly to look at Cassidy. She was smiling, but her eyes were venomous. Being a man involves paying your own debts, Cassidy, I said. Not relying on your in-laws to house you. Luke slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Everyone stopped. Can we just eat? Please? Barbara glared at me. You're upsetting him. Always upsetting him. Cassidy, go get the roast. Let's feed my poor boy. We moved to the dining table. The tablecloth was stained. The silverware was mismatched. I didn't care about poverty, I cared about the lack of effort. They didn't try because they felt entitled to everything without trying. Just like Luke. Cassidy sat next to Luke. I was relegated to the seat across from them, next to Frank. Cassidy spent the entire meal serving Luke. Here, honey, take the crispy piece. Oh, let me cut that for you. She acted like his wife. And he let her. He ate with his head down, avoiding my gaze. So, Barbara said, chewing with her mouth open, when are you two giving me grandkids? I nearly choked on my water. Cassidy giggled. Oh, Mom, don't pressure them. You know Raina has issues. She lowered her voice to a theatrical whisper. With her hormones. My fork clattered onto my plate. The sound rang out like a gunshot. I looked at Luke. He had stopped chewing. His face was pale. He had told his mother too. He had told everyone. Oh, right, Barbara said, waving her fork. The plumbing's broken. Well, there are doctors for that. Or maybe it's just stress. You're too uptight, Raina. If you relaxed, maybe your body would work right. Frank chuckled. Needs to loosen up. Have a drink. I looked around the table. These people despised me. They used my money, lived in the house my family paid for, and mocked me to my face. And my husband sat there, silent. Actually, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. My plumbing is fine, Barbara. The table went quiet again. Barbara looked confused. But Luke said. I looked straight at Luke. Tell her, Luke. Tell her why we haven't had children. Luke looked like he was about to vomit. Raina, don't. Tell her, I repeated. Cassidy rolled her eyes. God, you're so intense. Just admit you're barren and move on. It's not a big deal. We can adopt. We? I asked. Are you adopting with him, Cassidy? She blushed. I meant, you know what I meant. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I'm not barren. My hormones are perfect. The reason we don't have children is because Luke has been taking medication for erectile dysfunction for the last 3 years. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Frank's mouth hung open. Barbara dropped her fork. Cassidy looked from me to Luke, her eyes wide. Luke closed his eyes, defeated. That's a lie. Cassidy shrieked suddenly. She slammed her hands on the table. You're just trying to embarrass him because you're jealous. I laughed. It was a cold, dark sound. Jealous? Of what? I reached into my purse. I pulled out the empty orange bottle I had retrieved from the trash before we left. I tossed it onto the table. It spun and rattled, coming to a rest in front of Barbara. Read the label, Barbara. Sildenafil. Prescribed to Luke Ashman. Barbara stared at the bottle like it was a grenade. She picked it up with shaking hands. Luke? She whispered. Luke didn't answer. He just stared at his plate. I looked at Cassidy. You said you could vouch for his stamina the other night, didn't you? Back in college? Well, unless you've been sleeping with him recently, your information is a decade out of date. Cassidy's face turned a violent shade of crimson. She sputtered, looking for a comeback, but found none. I turned to Luke. I covered for you. For 3 years. I let you tell people I was stressed. I let you tell people I wasn't in the mood. But when you started telling people I was broken, when you let your little girlfriend here mock my body to make yourself look like a stud, that was the end, Luke. I grabbed my purse. I'm leaving. Luke stood up, knocking his chair over. Raina, wait. Sit down, Luke. Frank barked. Luke froze. Frank was looking at his son with a mixture of pity and disgust. Let her go. You've done enough damage. Luke looked at me, his eyes pleading. I didn't care. I walked to the door. Oh, and Luke? I said, pausing with my hand on the knob. Don't bother coming home tonight. I'm changing the locks. I walked out into the cool afternoon air. I could hear shouting erupting from inside the house. Barbara screaming. Cassidy crying. Luke trying to explain. I got into the car, not Luke's car, but the Uber I had called under the table 5 minutes ago that had just pulled up. I got in the back seat. Where to, miss? The driver asked. Home, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I actually felt like I was going to a place that was mine. The ride home was a blur of adrenaline. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer release of energy. I had dropped the nuclear bomb. There was no going back now. When I got to the house, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I went into operational mode. I called a locksmith. It was a Sunday, so it cost triple, but I didn't care. While I waited for him, I went through the house. I grabbed garbage bags. I went into the man cave, the spare room Luke had claimed for his gaming setup and collection. I didn't break anything else. That was petty. Instead, I packed. I swept his figurines into boxes. I pulled his clothes from the closet and stuffed them into bags. I cleared his toiletries from the bathroom. By the time the locksmith arrived, the living room looked like a loading dock. The locksmith was a burly man with a kind face. He didn't ask questions. He saw the bags. He saw the ring on my finger. He saw the look in my eyes. Rough day? He asked as he drilled out the deadbolt. You have no idea, I said. He changed the locks on the front door, the back door, and the garage. He handed me the new keys. You be safe, ma'am. Thank you. I paid him and locked the door behind him. The click of the deadbolt sliding into place was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. My phone had been blowing up for the last 2 hours. 40 missed calls from Luke. 12 from Cassidy. 3 from Barbara. I muted it. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. I sat on the couch, staring at the pile of Luke's belongings. Then, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite ring. It was a frantic, incessant mashing of the button. Raina, let me in. It was Luke. I sipped my wine. I didn't move. Raina, I know you're in there. Open the goddamn door. He pounded on the wood. I could hear the desperation in his voice. He wasn't scary. He was panicking. He realized the ATM machine was closed. I picked up my phone and texted him. Your things are in the garage. I put the opener code in a text. If you keep banging on the door, I'm calling the police. I watched the little dots appear as he read it. The banging stopped. A moment later, I heard the garage door rumble open. I heard him cursing as he found the bags. I heard him dragging them out to his car. He tried the door leading from the garage to the house. Locked. He pounded on it once, a dull thud. Raina, please. We need to talk. I didn't answer. Eventually, I heard the garage door close. I heard his car engine start. He drove away. I was alone in the big, quiet house. I looked at the empty space on the wall where his favorite poster had been. It looked clean. It looked open. I took a deep breath. The war wasn't over. The divorce would be messy. They would fight for the house. They would try to smear my name. Cassidy would spin a story about how I was crazy. But I had the high ground now. I had the truth. And more importantly, I had my dignity back. I finished my wine and went upstairs. For the first time in 3 years, I slept in the middle of the bed. Monday morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I called Samantha Holloway. She was known in the city as the Shark. She was expensive, ruthless, and hated losing. My father had played golf with her once and said she was the scariest woman he'd ever met. Perfect. I took the day off work. I spent the morning gathering documents. Bank statements. Mortgage deeds. The receipts for the down payment my parents made. I found the credit card statements showing Luke's spending habits. The business dinners. That coincided with charges at bars Cassidy frequented. I printed everything. I was organizing the file when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Raina? It's Frank. Luke's father. I paused. Frank never called me. Hello, Frank. Look, he said, his voice gruff. Barbara is in a state. Her blood pressure is through the roof. I'm sorry to hear that, I said politely. Is she? Frank snapped. Because you caused it. Humiliating the boy like that. In front of his mother. I didn't humiliate him, Frank. The truth humiliated him. He sighed. Listen. He's a mess. He's staying on our couch. He can't stay here forever. We don't have the room. That sounds like a problem, Frank. You need to let him back in the house, Raina. It's his house too. Actually, it's not, I said. My parents paid the down payment. I pay the mortgage. His name is on the deed, but I have records of every cent paid. A judge will see it my way. You're heartless, you know that? Frank spat. After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me? I asked, genuinely curious. You mean criticize my weight? Insult my family? Eat meals I paid for without saying thank you? You stuck up. I hung up. I blocked the number. I arrived at Samantha Holloway's office at 2 p.m. She was a striking woman with silver hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. She listened to my story without interrupting. She looked at the documents I had brought. She looked at the photo of Cassidy and Luke I had found on his social media, one I hadn't noticed before, where his hand was resting a little too low on her waist. So, Samantha said, leaning back in her leather chair. He has no assets. He has a history of financial irresponsibility. And he has verbally abused you and allowed others to do so. Yes. And the house? My parents' money. Samantha smiled. It was a terrifying smile. I like this case. We're going to eviscerate him. But, she added, holding up a finger. He's going to fight dirty. That girl, Cassidy? She's going to be a problem. She's not just a friend. She's an instigator. She's going to push him to go for alimony. Alimony? I choked out. He makes decent money. Doesn't matter. If she convinces him to quit his job or claim emotional distress, he could try. We need to be ready. I nodded. I'm ready. Good. First step, we freeze the joint accounts. Second step, I file a restraining order against the girlfriend if she comes near you. Can we do that? Harassment, Samantha said. We can make a case. Now, go home. Change your passwords. All of them. Social media, email, bank. And Reina? Yes? Don't talk to him. Not a word. Direct everything to me. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in years. I did exactly what she said. I spent the evening changing every password I had. I even changed the Wi-Fi password, just in case Luke tried to sit in the driveway and use it. Around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang again. I checked the camera feed on my phone. It wasn't Luke. It was Cassidy. She was standing on the porch, looking furious. She was banging on the door. Reina, come out here. I know you're in there, you bitch. I watched her on the screen. She looked unhinged. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared. She kicked the door. You think you're so smart? Ruining his life? He's crying his eyes out because of you. I pressed the button on the intercom. Get off my porch, Cassidy. She jumped, looking around for the camera. She spotted it and flipped it off. I'm not going anywhere until you agree to talk to him. You can't just lock him out. I'm calling the police, I said calm. You have 2 minutes. She laughed. Call them. I'll tell them you stole his property. I dialed 911. I watched on the camera as the police cruiser pulled up 5 minutes later. Cassidy tried to play the victim immediately. She burst into tears, pointing at the house. The officers weren't buying it. They asked her to step away from the door. She started screaming. They put her in the back of the car. I stepped out onto the porch as they were writing the report. Is there a problem, officer? Just a disturbance, ma'am, the older officer said. This young lady claims she lives here? I shook my head. She definitely does not. She's my estranged husband's friend. She's harassing me. Cassidy rolled down the window from the back seat. You liar. Luke lives there. My husband doesn't live here anymore, I said. And neither do you. The officer nodded. We'll take her home to cool off. Do you want to press charges for trespassing? I looked at Cassidy. Her face was pressed against the glass, distorted with rage. Not tonight, I said. But if she comes back, absolutely. The officer tipped his hat. Understood. Have a good night, ma'am. They drove away. I went back inside. I knew this was just the beginning. Cassidy wouldn't stop. Luke was weak, which meant he would do whatever she told him to do. But as I looked around my quiet, empty house, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. They were loud. They were messy. But they were weak. And I was done being their victim. I picked up my phone and sent one last text to Samantha. Cassidy just got picked up by the cops for trespassing. I have the video. Samantha replied instantly. Perfect. Send it over. We'll file for that restraining order tomorrow. I smiled. Game on.